Good morning, everybody. It's Marty, the JavaScript party, and my buddy Rhett. Here's an almond for her. I think this is the first time this whole week that she's gotten to come out and participate in a movie. Just daylight savings, man. That is just. I don't know if we're. I think I should know. Are we saving? Or okay, so our clock, my watch says 10:30, but a week ago it would have said 9:30. So I think we've entered. Have we just entered daylight savings time? Yes. Okay, so we just entered daylight savings time um, instead of um, leaving daylight savings time. So we have an extra hour of daylight in the evening, which is so nice. But it's rough. That transition is really rough. It is interesting though, because like this used to be how the whole financial system worked in web, right? Like you would do a search and then you'd find a web page that talked about it. But now Google is really becoming more of a just the thing you ask questions and then it just gives you the answers. Um, I don't really have a judgment on that. I'm just um, like this Wikipedia. There was a time when I probably went to Wikipedia 5, 10 times a day used it as a reference for things. Um, and now I may go to Wikipedia 5 to 10 times a year, right? Like, and then like this one, CBS News, it's just like, um, okay, whatever. And then this, but as you see, there's no like individual small creator kind of web developer in here. Like there's not even like even the idea of a concept of just like a regular person who has thought about daylight savings in there. But anyway, so that has a huge effect. It made the week really rough. So let's do this. I want to try something because I was thinking about this. So if I go in here and I just type in the words, if I type in the word Marty, right? Like that was simple, took a fraction of a second. It is very, very hard for me to type in Martha. Like unless, see, like I cannot not put that Y there. And that's because full muscle memory takes over. And it literally takes, I would guess, about, if you could do the time difference, is probably at least 30 times, 40 times slower for me to manually type in Martha instead of Marty, right? Like, and it's still even faster for me to fail, type in Marty, hit back, and then type in HA. That is faster than me typing going, okay, and if you were to say, hey, what letter and how do you type in the letter R when you type in your name? I don't have the vaguest idea because it's buried inside of a bunch of muscle memories. So that's kind of how I guess the kids these days call it vibe coding. I used to call it like primordial coding. It's just like where you drop into sort of a lower, less conscious state and you just start just grinding out code. And like when you first start coding, like you might drop in and out of a primordial sort of muscle memory state, maybe a couple times an hour for less than 10 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds here or there. But as you become more and more experienced, you start spending more and more time in the muscle memory part, the part where you're not really thinking, where you're just grinding through. And then eventually, if you do that long enough, you might go for a whole solid minute. And then next thing you know, and if you've been around a lot of coders over time, you will have probably seen this, but like someone just dipping into a 8, 9 hour marathon where they're just like grinding away, just like in some alternate universe. And then when at the end, when they're all done, you they've written a bunch of code. They don't know what it does. They know it works. It does what the goal was, but they don't understand how it works or anything. And you can go on years like that. Oh, I don't have my clock type date. You can go on for years and years and years like that. And then if you do that, then the the only downside, honestly, the only downside to that is that you won't be able to explain what you're doing. Just like I can't explain how I type the letter R when I type in Marty. I don't have any idea. Like I can look down M-A-R. So I use my index finger to go up to the R. And then I use my index finger to slide over to the T. I did not know that. Didn't know that until we sat here and worked through it. That's exactly what's happening here. And one of the things that I really learned is that these drop downs, when you have a drop down, they're probably one of the best examples of like data that is probably coming from various places and has various levels of sort of hooks into whatever the standards are. So like if I go over here and I type in data in the URL, data slash entities, and I hit enter and I add one of these things, what happens is this here absolutely 100% describes this here. That's how that works, right? This is a full description of that. And these for for the purposes of this, and I'm just thinking out loud here. I'm trying to move through this slowly so I can understand how what the mechanisms are, and then try to convert that into English. But this here is for the purposes of this application a our vocabulary, right? So we have ST render, ST camera, right? So when I do this filter criteria, these are directly tied to our basic vocabulary. And furthermore, like I'm not using an API or backend or anything. So, um, like if we were, this list would live in a database remotely, which one thing is I have like constants that I use to to drive these. I wouldn't be able to do that if that was in a database. And 99 times out of 100, when you have something like this, you want it in a database. So it's a very like that solution that I came up with for having driving this drop down out of a constant is a solution that only works in just the rarest of cases. But when it does work, it is absolutely beautiful. And if it does make sense to you why um, this doesn't make any sense, then um, like why you can't do the constant from an API, then like that just going through that's like one of those core questions that like if you can ever come if that question makes sense to you and you understand why it's a problem, it proves that you truly understand the different where different pieces of the application live. And that is such an important skill. And it's the kind of skill that like it's really easy to go into like flashcards and read a definition and then not really understand what it is, but be able to get past the interview. So it's almost like a useless interview question, but you want to know. You want to know exactly why that is. But anyways, so these are directly tied from here to here. These are directly tied to what we want or our vocabulary. But then this is not tied to our vocabulary, and it's actually tied to this. So when it's entities, we want to see all of them, right? So we have entities there, we want to see all of them. But when it's animations, we only want to see the ST animations. And then this is an example of something that matters, right? Like, so technically, for whatever is driving this, um, it is possible and conceivable that there would be an empty, like there's no value there. So we're just at data and there's no value there. And now the router automatically um, rejects that. Like it'll actually automatically throw us back to the baseline 4200. That's how we coded it to do that. But so this is an example of something we don't want to show. This is an example we want to show, but it's a different name. And then these are examples of we want to show them as they are. And then, like, let's say we were like, well, I only want to see the ones that are ThreeJS specific. So STC is there's the ones that have a ThreeJS doppelganger. So these two do not have a ThreeJS doppelganger. There is no there's no viz component in ThreeJS. There's no ST visualization in ThreeJS, but there is a renderer. There is a camera, right? So let's say we wanted to add an additional filter for that. Then that's a completely abstract, right? It's a word that describes something that doesn't even exist in our world. It's more of a type of thing that exists in our world, but not that, So and like back in the original day, like when I first started coding, like the absolute prize degree that you could have and be a software developer when I first started was a degree in linguistics. If you coded but you had a degree in linguistics, it was, and that's because like if I had a degree in linguistics, gosh, I should really go back to school and get a degree in linguistics. But if I had a degree in linguistics, I'd be saying these are nouns and this is a adjective and then this is like I would divide these types of words up into different kinds of things, but I don't have that basic um, education. I have electrical engineering education, which has served me very well, but all ST type. So anyways, I want all ST types to be first and I want it to um, have a value of entities. And then I want this one to not exist. And then I want these to have the name and the value. That is a very interesting hybrid. And I don't think you see hybrids like this very often in any aspect of code. Generally, things are kind of they I don't even know the words. Generally things are more stay in their category. But this one, these drop down lists for filtering um, tend to be a very unique thing. And I literally never noticed that. And I wouldn't have noticed that if I hadn't been moving so slow. So, like, I never noticed that my index finger hits R and T. I didn't never notice that. I've typed my name more than 10,000 times in less than a billion. And I don't know what that number is. I know that's a huge, huge range. I would even, I would even say I'm pretty sure it's less than 10 million. So somewhere between 10,000 and 10 million times I've typed my name. And then you could easily say to you, how can you type your name in so many times and not understand that your index finger goes from R to T? How is that even possible? Like that doesn't make any sense. You must be lying. And that is the problem with vibe coding, primordial coding, as I used to call it, like where you muscle memory, where you've learned everything, but you can't really explain it, but you know how to do it. Like that's the main problem with that is that everybody thinks it is not very difficult to create a story, a narrative of how you must be lying because how could you have possibly typed your name hundreds of thousands of times and not know that you go from R to T? You must be a liar. And the big reason that happens is because when you're a coder, like if you're at the low level coder, lying doesn't make a lot of sense because lies are almost immediately exposed. Because when you say, "Oh yeah, now you can just iterate over an object just like an array," it actually has a for loop just for it. Like it works exactly the same way. You can say that, and then when someone sits down and tries to do it, the lie is exposed immediately. But like as a developer, so lying isn't a skill that is of very much value at the low level developer spot, but like it's a very valuable skill at like the vice president spot. Like it's important that they know the things to tell the truth about, the things not to tell the truth about, the things to sort of imply things. Like that's a whole part of their world. It's not a part of the developer world though. And like I think it was one of the big major universities supposed to be so amazing at software development. Like in theirs, they actually in their CS degree, they actually started requiring people have improv classes, and those improv, and that's like lying classes. It's like, guys, you need to learn how to lie. Improv is like, hey, we're going to create a fantasy. It's going to be funny, and it's all in good fun. We all know we're here, sort of just making stuff up for the goal of making us think and making us have funny times and stuff. Like that's not a skill that you should probably need. That brings very much value to as a computer programmer, but it sure brings a lot of value as a director and above. So, anyways, that's what I think. I guess we should actually try to get the code for it. I don't have a lot of time today, so I've got to do that. But let's filter out the blank. Let's at least do that. So um, we need to create a new array. So that's all this is doing. So and it could be a constant. This is always something that throws a lot of people off. Is I'm going to say const um, filtered result menu results. So these are our filtered menu results, and we are going to make it this array. And I am desperately trying to force myself out of not allowing. I'm like when I was typing my name and looking. That's what I'm trying to do right now. Trying to get super focused on um, the what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. I remember, so I once worked at this place. I guess there's nothing negative about this. So when I worked at CNN, the biggest day of the year is the day before the election night. So that's like the Super Bowl. Like if you're at ESPN, there's like nothing more important than election night, presidential election night. It's the most important thing. And there was like a new version of Chrome that dropped, and like 30% of the people who used Chrome, which was like 65% of all the people that used our website, like the layout that they had. Basically, what the layout wanted was like an auto start on a video, but they added a new rule that said you could not. They, being Google Chrome, added a new rule that said you couldn't auto start a video under a certain size, and that and at that when that happened, only like not everybody had that version of Chrome. So they were like, we need some JavaScript to um, to basically make the video bigger if they didn't have that. Right. So it was like code, it was throwaway code that was literally for just one day. So you're writing this code, you're literally, that code is only ever going to be used for one day and then it's going to get thrown away. Um, So then, like, I came into work. I don't know why I was later than normal, and I showed up, and they're like, "Yeah, can you write this thing up?" And it was the day before, so it was 2 days before the election, and they're like, "Can you write this up?" And then we're going to use it. We're going to test it, and then we'll use it on election night. And I was like, "Sure." So I wrote it up, and then my manager, who ended up becoming a manager at or a manager who wasn't my manager, but he was a manager. He was who ended up being a manager at another organization that later on I had a friend that worked there and she was trying to get me a job there and she couldn't because he didn't like me. Um, that guy, he was so offended by the code that I wrote. And he's like, "Why? Why this code?" And then I was like, "I don't know. That's just you gave me an assignment. That's what I came up with." And he's like, "Yeah, but why?" And I was like, "Because that's what I wrote." Well, what's wrong with this code? And then he showed me his code. So I guess he had on his own time composed some code, and he couldn't understand why I chose my code. Well, first of all, I made up my code. I didn't choose it. But second of all, I was unaware of his code. And so I'm looking at his code and I couldn't see anything wrong with it. I didn't have any. He goes, "Well, why not this one?" I was like, "I don't know. You use that. That seems fine. I don't have any problem with that." He's like, "You can't do that. You can't do that. You have to tell me why." And I'm like, "I don't know." And then like an hour later, he came up to me and goes, "Oh, see, yours is so much better because see, when you do this here, then this happens there, and blah 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 blah." So then, like he pondered both sets of code and then did a compare and contrast, trying to figure out which one was better. And then after comparing and contrasting, spending like a whole hour doing analysis on it, he was like, "Oh, okay, I get it. Yeah, yours is better." I didn't know. I honestly didn't know. It's just what I'm doing. Well, so that's what's happening here. It's like, okay, so I put this in a const. Why? Why do I put this in a const? Well, because I don't want the actual array to change. I mean, I want when I do my filtering and stuff, I want to keep it's going to be the same array. The contents of the array are going to be different, but it's the same array. So it is a constant array. Const does not mean that your the data inside is different. It only means that the actual location of the that it's stored, that the memory that array is stored in is the same. And so it's like this is like if you built a new house and then you move the family over into the house, but they still live in the old house, like you have a vacation house. It's the same people. The same people live in both houses, but it's two different houses, but it's the exact same people. That's how that works. And I like to name it constant so that I know that okay, I'm not changing this. If I do need to change it at some point in the future, I need to think through that. But right now, my basic assumption is that the location of this array is not going to change. And so now I want to filter it. So that really throws a lot of people off, right? So I'm just going to say, I don't know why, but I think we should check it for length. And again, I don't know why I'm doing this. It's not because I'm lying to you. I'm not lying. I'm not trying to lie right now. I honestly don't know why I should check the length. And honestly, I don't need to. Okay, so we know that it's an array. Even if it's an empty array, it's an array. So I guess there's no reason actually. And that is one of the major benefits of, I guess, having it be a constant too. So I can say like, well, so one of the problems though is that a lot of the so if I try to do this like filtered results equals to filtered dot filter, and then I give this thing an array, and see this right here again, this is a perfect example of where I am in total muscle memory, like making these things. It's total muscle memory. And so this is a routing layout type. Um, so this is we're going over the routing layout type. Yes, I do definitely see that the IDE is complaining, and this is like something that I'll see a lot of juniors will really be very confused by this. Okay, um, so filter wants a true or a false for each value, right? So basically, the only time we want it to be false is if it's blank. So um, result. So I'm going to make this a let because it changes result. I'm actually going to name it keep. Let keep. And by default, we're going to say keep is equal to true. And return true. Now, if you're anything like me, that is annoying the shit out of you right now up here on this red line here. All right, so what's the problem here? The problem here is that this is a constant, and this is going to actually destroy the whole, this is going to return a new array. So if I change this to let, then that goes away. And I actually like this pattern. Like I like to declare it and then have a line here and then do something to it. I just like that. I don't know anyone else that I don't. I've never. No one has ever. This is 100% chance of getting. If you're in a very intense, where they do very intense PRs, and someone's going to really take a deep look at it, this is the point. This will probably fail. They'll probably want you to change this to raw selected data filter and return that. Which I guess that also is that's fine. The only problem is that it can be kind of difficult to read. Um, this I think is a little bit. This is like having two sentences. This is like, hey, can you go ahead and take filtered results and just take everything from this one and make it an array? Sure. Now, can you remove all the ones? Can you remove all the ones that are blank? So remove that one right there, that first one. So I'm going to say if type is equal to. And what's really bizarre is that keep is equal to true about this is false. So we don't want to keep it if it's false. So to me, that is so easy to remember. Line 95 as a standalone line is so easy to understand what that does. That sets a variable, a Boolean variable to true, right? And then I'm saying, oh, if the layout type is blank, then keep is false. Okay, set it to false. That to me, that is so super easy to remember. And then return keep. Like to me, like every line here is just so easy to decode that I would rather do it that way instead of do it a more curt way. Because honestly, there's you kind of have to write your code. It's so weird because this phrase is just a math phrase, but like it's got a lot of political sort of baggage that comes with it. But I just truly mean this in a math phrase. In a math phrase, you really need to write to your lowest common denominator. So like if there's only two of you that's ever going to be working on a project and that's it. You just got these two people need to get this done and they're both like super high up, sure. Write super curt code. But if you know that at some point a junior may need to come in here, then you should write it so that a junior could understand it. Um, that's my personal philosophy on that. Anyway, so this should remove the blank one, right? And I don't even know if we're using it. And that's what this first line does. I just don't even know if we're even using it. Oh, raw selector route. Here's where we're using it. This route records. Oh, okay, yeah. Apply. No, populate menu. Do I even call populate menu? I'm gonna say populates just for fun. Okay, so we are definitely using it. Where do we use this thing? Why don't we do it in the before the constructor even runs. All right. So we're running this and then we're setting that and then are we using our are we even using our hmm, let's try that again. Populates. There. Line 38. Back to line 38. All right, so entities select data. Do we use that? Dater. I know a lot of people in England will call that dater. All right. And we would not be able to do it like this, like where where we're populating it up here if we were getting this from an API or something like that. I don't think. But since we're bringing it in from a comment. Okay, so that was in layout on line 37. We're using this. Yep. I saved. Did I fix it and save it? Hit the little back button up here. Hit save. And oh, now they're all gone. So something went horribly wrong. 12. Is it right here? Right up in here? Right here. All right. So we're by default setting. So filtered menu. Guess we probably want to stop here first. Reload. What are we doing wrong? Okay, so it should be right here, right? Yep. Now what we're saying is we want it to go over, and we want to set the keep to true filter. I believe this thing's supposed to get a layout type. Okay, so I'm just gonna hit run. Okay, so layout type is st_renderer, so it's not that, so it should be changed to false. And let's just see if we ever get into the false. And let's go back to, oh, what the heck? Return. Okay, so I think, well, that's actually pretty scary because this shouldn't have changed. Okay, so we want to go here too. That's weird. Hit run. So we do end up here when that is false. So we only end up in there once, right? Yep, we only end up in there once. And then we return this whole thing, which is all of them. So I don't know why they're all blank at that point. Because it seems like they should all be in there. All right, but they're not. So that's weird. But we did find one little bug that shouldn't make a difference, but we do need to fix it, and that is we need to return filtered results, not filtered menu results. Now, every once in a while, entity select data type does not. Did I? Okay, that's weird. Date. Okay, that's crazy that it didn't break before. Right, that's weird. It's weird, right? It's weird. Okay, we're stuck in the debugger. Stuck in the debugger again. Do, 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 do. All right, and what we're hoping, yeah, so it's gone. All right, so the next thing we want to do is we want to move this thing to the top. And we're kind of lucky now that I think about it because I think alphabetical order is fine. I think alphabetical order will get us there. So if we do that, I think all we have to do is type in sort. And so this is one of those funny things where like sort does not return a new value. Like you're allowed, like I believe sort actually changes it in place, whereas yeah, sorts an array. Sort if you look up here, it says sorts an array in place. So that is one of the things that really messes junior developers up a lot. Is like when do these functions, array functions, return a new thing, and when do they alter the existing thing? And there's no real good, like you just have to remember. Um, and so like I think most developers like when they go to college or if they go to a boot camp or if they get any kind of formal training at all, they'll that one of the very first functions they ever get introduced to is the sort, and the sort changes the array in place. So then it's easy for them to think that the sort doesn't, that everything changes everything in place. Okay, so sorting did not work. Why did sorting not work? Oh, well, because I did it in the absolute wrong place. That was me being a silly rabbit again. Data, filtered records, return true. Apply, where are you? There you are. This is the one I want to sort. So sort by default sorts alphabetical. And I can't remember if like it cares about yeah, I don't know how that works, but yeah, see now put it exactly how I want it. Then these are actually just a happy little side effect. These are there. So now the question is, okay, I want it to, with the exception of for entities, I want to add another rule and I want it to be all ST types instead of entities. I want to say all ST types, but I want it to be entities. All the rest of them, I want them to say what they are. So where do you put that logic, right? There's I think there's three places that we could put the logic, right? There's one we could kind of have like we could upgrade our data, our this guy, our records, our entity. Is this it? Yeah. We could change this so that it has like an array object or it has an object, a menu object, and then the menu has a label and a value. And basically for everything but entities, we need the label. The label is the value. But for entities, the label says all ST types, but the value says is entities, right? So like where do you put that kind of just real edge case, very, very specific UI specific logic, right? Like nothing else in any part of the system needs to understand that sometimes we like to refer to entities as all ST types. Like there's nothing else needs to know that, right? But a lot of times people will add that sort of logic all the way to the like they'll configure it. They'll set it up as a configuration in the database, right? And then like it flows all the way through, and then it's just like that could be broken at so many different layers, and it's just difficult to 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 test, and it's almost impossible for like a DBA, let's say, like they're in charge of the data, to go, oh, if I change this, so like to ST dash entities, um, it's going to break shit at all layers of this application. Like, and it's just like, why? Why should it break things at all layers of the application when this little bit of logic probably should just exist? Like, they shouldn't even, this probably should never even exist in the database at all. Like, the database should have no concept of all ST types. It's not relevant to the database. But anyways, at least not in that world. Or in the creation of things. But anyway, so I'm gonna have to call it quits at this point. I think tomorrow we'll do the next thing, which is uh, well, no, we're done with it with that. So we're actually done with this. Um, and so I guess tomorrow what we'll do is we'll actually handle what happens when you click this, which is basically, I think all I want it to do is, that's weird. Oh no, it's like that from the beginning, right? If I hit refresh. Well, first of all, like all I want it to do is update the route, and I want all any code that happens like filtering, all that should be driven by the route change, not by the UI change. So it's like, hey, all this UI change does is changes the route. What happens after that? None of its business. Um, so that's one thing. But then after that, we want to go the other way around, where when I type in, let's say ST camera, if for some reason I'm here, then this thing updates. Um, and then we do probably need to also test like if we go straight there and then we add something, does it work? Does this get updated properly? And does this filter happen properly? And then if we go back to it, right? So now if I were to go here and then hit back, so the filtering still works, but the drop down is not populating. So in both cases, those are like, and those are slightly different. It's kind of weird because it feels like it's the same thing, but it really isn't. Is, one of them is like you manually going there and then it feeding through the router. The other one is you hitting back and the state updating based on hitting the back button. They slightly different. So, anyways, that's it. Happy coding, everybody. Bye.